Hello everyone, today is November 16th, and welcome to an overview of the upcoming weather over the next few days. Now, I feel like to say it was chilly outside today was an understatement. I mean, it felt terrible today. Like I was just walking in between classes for even a minute being outside was terrible. So far today, we've barely hit 50. Like we're looking at 50s on the South Shore, 52 in New Orleans, 51 at the airport, 52 in reserve. Clouds are overhead, there's no sunshine, well, very limited sunshine, and the wind has been ripping throughout the day. It has felt in the mid 40s and low 40s pretty much all day. And just being in those conditions are terrible. And sadly, it doesn't look like those conditions will be changing for the next week. We'll get into that in a second. But first, about today. If we take a look at a satellite loop, you can see clouds streaming overhead, and you can see the low level clouds actually moving north to south. I love seeing this. It's so cool to me. You got clouds streaming overhead. These are upper level clouds streaming from southwest to northeast. Your low level clouds are going from north to south. There's low level, very cold air, and in the upper levels there's a little bit of moisture, but down at the surface it is bitterly cold. Any moisture is in the upper levels right now. Now, with that said, I'm actually going to switch to radar for a second, because I was noticing earlier there's a batch of rain that appears to be heading this way. And typically this would be a problem. We're going to delve into this a little bit more in depth now, because while it may look like there's some fairly heavy rain over St. Martin, Iberia Parish, most of this is actually more in the upper levels. If we move to Lake Charles radar, you can see that the same kind of spot exists. However, notice that close to the radar, you're not seeing very much. Now, keep in mind that this is radar clutter, this is not actually rain. But this over here is rain. Radars typically scan horizontally out compared to the Earth's surface. However, since the Earth is round, the beam height actually gets higher and higher as you get farther away from the radar. So picture this for a second. As the Earth curves, if we have a radar that is here scanning outward and its direction does not change, if it keeps going, you can see how the height changes as we go throughout. This is why the farther away you get from radar, the higher you scan in the atmosphere. Right around the radar, we're scanning at about 300 feet. Now I want you to look at this counter that I'm circling right here. This is beam height. That means how high off the ground in an estimate that the radar is scanning. This rain is being scanned at about 8,000 feet, and we can see that. Now in some spots, obviously as you get close to the radar, this spot right here, about 3,000 feet, which is pretty low. Now when you come to New Orleans' radar, you can see that it's scanning this radar a lot farther away, about 12,000 feet to 11,000 feet in that area. What we can also see is that it actually tries to depict some rain closer to Lake Charles compared to what Lake Charles shows. Obviously keep in mind, the beam height here is about 24,000 feet to 20,000 feet. If we come back to Lake Charles radar and compare that, you can see that there's a big dry spot here compared to what New Orleans was showing. Now the other question is this hitting the ground? Well, if we actually look at the station in Abbeville, there is rain. This here is, as you can see, light rain is being depicted by that. Now while it's raining in Abbeville, the station at the Acadiana Regional Airport is reporting no rain currently. So it's basically a toss-up in these heavier pockets as to if it's raining. Now I would bank that this spot here is definitely falling to the surface, as heavy as it looks. And if we map this out, it will be heading to Prairieville and near Baton Rouge. It should pass about in between the two. We're going to be watching this as we go throughout later today because originally there was no rain in the forecast. Another helpful tool is going to be the radar in Norco. Now this radar is different from the others. It's a lower quality, but it also scans a lot lower than New Orleans does. Now the radar here, if we go back to it, I'm going to focus on this little pocket here. Right now, it's scanning about 6,000 feet at this little pocket of rain. Now this is Supreme, Napoleonville, in Assumption Parish. If we go back to reflectivity here, you can see that we're scanning at 2,000 feet. And notice how the pocket of rain is much smaller, which signals that not a lot of the rain is actually making it to the surface. With that being said, the possibility for light rain does exist throughout today. However, it should not be that big of a threat, and if it does rain, it will be light. Now, moving on from today's weather, we're going to go to future. Now, obviously today we had very bitter cold. However, I hate to break it to people, but tomorrow may actually be colder. Now, as we can see when we flip between these two graphics, you can tell that Thursdays depicts a colder day compared to what we had today. Granted, it is not colder by that much. It's about a degree or two colder in every spot. But what we do notice is the chance of rain that appears tomorrow. Now, if we look at the hourly forecasts, this is for Luling, you can notice that there is a slight chance of rain during the day tomorrow. There's a 10% chance here in the morning, and there's another chance here in the afternoon. Now, both of these chances are pretty insignificant. As you can see, the actual chance, 10 to 20%. That's it. That's all we're seeing here. But what will stand out is how cold this rain will be. Tonight, lows are only forecasted to be 45 degrees in Luling. This represents basically the entire South Shore, south of the lake. That'll represent all of that. Our highs for tomorrow, only 53 degrees. That is an 8-degree climb. That is it. Typically, on an average day, you'll see about a 20-degree climb, maybe higher than that. Tomorrow, 8 degrees. And not to mention, winds will only be increasing. At times, they will be jumping up to 15 miles an hour sustained. Gusts will be up near 20 to 25 miles an hour. That creates wind chills. Not that low, but that wind will make it feel very cold for our standards. Now, if we took a place like Hammond, for example, things get a lot colder. Now, as you can see, the low tonight, 37 there. The other thing of this forecast is that the chance of rain goes much lower. The rain tomorrow will be mostly on the South Shore as a low pressure system in the Gulf moves eastward. Stays south of us, but will probably bring some coastal rain. Not very much, but the chance is there. Now, if we look at lows for tomorrow night in Hammond, you can see we get very close to freezing. I'm going to go back to Hahnville for a little bit. If we go forward 2 days, we can see that highs don't change. I mean, oh my. Topping out every day, 55, 54. And on Saturday, a bigger chance of rain will exist. Now, this is during the day Saturday. You can see a 40% chance of rain. And we can also see that a chance of rain exists all the way from Friday night into Sunday morning. Once again, we'd be looking at a very cold rain. And even going forward another 2 days, as we look at Monday and Tuesday, we see that temperatures still can hardly get out of the 50s. It doesn't take until Tuesday, where I'm going to swap here. Look at the graphical interpretation of this. So this is today. The highs today, mid-50s. Tomorrow, mid-50s. Friday, we'll kind of get upper 50s. Mid to upper 50s. Saturday, mid-50s. Sunday, mid-50s. Monday, we start to see some orange creep in, but still over land, upper 50s. It doesn't take until Tuesday before we finally start to warm up. It takes a whole week from now till we finally get out of the 50s. Which for our terms, and considering that, reminder, it's still November, is incredible. We are still in the middle of fall. And to have this long of a stretch, I think it's going to be about 10 days that we stay in the 50s and not leave them. That is incredible. And I think at this point we're going to be hoping for some warmer weather past this. Well, let's look. This is the GFS, which is the main American model. If we go to surface temperatures, and you can see mid-50s, 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 mid to upper 50s. Finally, when it gets to, what is this? Tuesday, like we showed earlier. On Tuesday during the day, we finally might hit 70. When we go to Wednesday, we also might hit 70. And then for Thursday of next week, the 80s may return, although it would be for a very short time before once again we get another cold front. That'll knock us back down into the 50s. Past this point, we get into the long range models. We don't like to use those. They're very inaccurate at this range. So for a summary of this week, cold, 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 cold. That is about all I have to say. You're going to enjoy your Tuesday when we finally get into the mid 60s. Also, to summarize, rain chances will be here for a couple of days this week. Now, it will be looking at a slight chance of rain today, but mostly tomorrow, and another chance of rain Friday night into Saturday. Now, besides these more nuisance rains, your week looks pretty good. If you have plans, I would say you keep them. Now, obviously, if you're opposed to the cold, you might think otherwise, because the cold will definitely be a factor. But the rain will not be enough to hamper people. It will only be light rain at most. Thank you all for staying tuned with me. Keep warm this week, as we're obviously going to still be cold. Be safe in the mornings, and I hope to see y'all in the next update. Goodbye.